The daily fantasy sports industry has been at the center of controversy for a number of weeks now, starting at the accusations of insider trading that allows some employees to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, then being mentioned at a presidential debate. And now, the New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman sent a cease-and-desist letter asking this website like DraftKings and FanDuel to drop taking bets from people from New York. Nick, this is one more instance where these websites are being accused of being unfair and selling themselves as something they're not.
Right, and the whole fact that they're fighting against federal government coming in, I think, is indicative of itself. But it was mentioned at the debate, the CNBC debate, and Jeb Bush was asked, or they were all asked, should the federal government step in when it comes to betting on fantasy sports? Jeb Bush kind of didn't answer at all. He said, I'm 7-0. Chris Christie came out. He attacked the moderators saying, we got Al-Qaeda, we got ISIS, we got all these other problems. I don't think we should be talking about fantasy football over here, which, yeah, that makes some sense. But at the same time, I think we're talking about gambling and whether that, is legal in some ways when we're talking about DraftKings. I think, in my opinion, it's the same as gambling. So we should see some federal government stepping in there.
And I think that was the whole point of the question, to see what is the responsibility of the federal government in regulating an industry that claims that is based on skill, the skill of a person to go pay some money to pick a number of players for their team and see if they are skillful enough to find the best players for that specific game or for that specific week. Now, many will say that there's an amount of chance involved in this because you don't know if these players are going to get injured, you don't know if they're going to get sick, you don't know if the coach is going to decide to bench them. So there's an amount of chance involved in this where many say this is betting. This is the same. This is exactly as betting, and it should be regulated as such because it's unfair that sports betting houses go through this regulation and this new industry is not going through it. But now it also shines light on another issue. Are these new industries like Uber, like daily fantasy sports, are growing faster than the federal government can regulate?
Yeah, and again, it's something that's pretty new. I'm not going to say it's very new. It's been around for a few years, but we're still adjusting to how we're going to make sure that it stays a certain way for the long run. And I think, without a doubt, you mentioned there's that randomness aspect, which would make it technically gambling the same way you gamble in a casino when you roll the dice. Exactly. But I see that as a no-brainer. I don't see why they're trying to say that there isn't, because whether you have some skill in there to put in or not, it's the same thing as poker. You have your own skills, but then again, there is some randomness to it. So again, there's absolutely no reason why the federal government shouldn't be investigating these kinds of things and making sure that it's all fair play.
Well, now the federal government is, at least in New York State, they're doing something. There's several federal lawmakers that are looking into categorizing daily fantasy sports in the same place and betting. But also, now that we know that this multi-billion industry has support from many of the major sporting teams and events where actually are stake owners on these companies, they will be harder to find strong regulation.